When you try to script as a podcaster, you usually fuck up and sound like one of the anchors for CNN, but you're not making $1 million. You're making negative $1 million. So it's an interesting industry. And I mean, like, for you to like just full on invest in like, I'm going to do it with podcasters. I got a lot of questions. That's a big commitment.
So part of going into the business, one thing that I knew I had to do was be really specific about the type of person I was going to work with to be able to make an income, right? So I do not work with hobby podcasters. I don't work with anyone who's kind of like fiddling with the idea. It's exclusively business owners who are using their podcast to generate leads for their business, and nonprofits who have the money to invest in someone like myself or my team to help me. But I did start listening to like true crime podcasts, and I'm like, oh, there's no way that they're making money from this. Absolutely no way. And it's true. Most podcasters are not making any money. But from a hobby standpoint, podcasting is so incredibly therapeutic. And before we were talking about how we're both introverts, but podcasting makes it so easy as introverts to have those more intimate conversations, which we really enjoy, right? Like, we don't want to be in the big crowds, we don't want to be in the big groups. We'd rather just have the one-on-one. Let's go deep really fast. Like, no surface level bullshit. Like, we don't need that. Like, let's get deep, let's talk. That is what I love about podcasting, especially as an introvert.
It's interesting because I had somebody the other day that was, I did an event for the podcast this past Saturday, and I had somebody that I met that worked with Patrick Ben-David. I live here in Fort Lauderdale, and supposedly he lives around here. I was like, oh, cool, okay. And he's a very different type of podcaster than I am. I mean, because he's the type of demographic that you work with. He has a team, he has a business, he has a structure, and it is a very different way of viewing his podcasting. In a way, it's like, imagine that like CNN, NBC, MNBC, like Fox, all of this is old. And it's the old before the internet, before we had access to podcasting, before we had access for journalists to go on like Substack and start making their own articles. It's where, I've said this before, it's like we as artists have more control than we've ever had before in history. Like, ever. Even more than the Romans. And the Romans loved gay people and prostitutes. How could you get any better? But like, completely different. It's completely different nowadays.
Yeah, the the average person can create content, which is really incredible, especially for BIPOC and LGBTQ plus community, right? Like, I'm mixed, Black, Hispanic. So like, this is something that's really important.
African and white.
There you go. So like, it's really important to the diverse voices to be able to have space where when we were kids, it was literally just a bunch of white people on the TV telling us what was going on in the world. And now we can use podcasting and art and music and our videos, whatever. We can use all of these things to share our lived experiences, which then opens up the idea of, oh my goodness, I've been through that too. My first podcast was business specific, but then my mom passed away, and I was like, I want to kind of understand some things in my childhood. And I started a podcast with my sister, which was all about cults, because we grew up in a cult. And I'm sure you're going to want to talk about that at some point, because
I grew up in a cult, so you're pretty, yeah.
So
right crowd, honey, right crowd.
Growing up in a cult and like trying to understand why the heck did she join that cult? But we couldn't ask her because she'd passed away. And so trying to process that and using podcasting as a way to literally just me and my sister living states away have these conversations about cults to understand it. But the thing that happened that we didn't really anticipate is people sliding in our DMs and saying, "Oh my goodness, me too. Oh my goodness, this happened to me. I love your story." Like, did not at all anticipate that. It was for us to process our own things. So podcasting creates just such an incredible way for us to share our stories in a way that really connects us, I think, as humans on a deeper level.
If we think about for a second on like how this interaction was possible, because we use Podmatch to, schedule our interview, and I've been using Podmatch since early of last year. I had Alex on my podcast as well, and the really cool thing about it is just the same way like you're creating a way of infrastructure for business podcast. There is this like a way of understanding of like collaboration. It's where like, look, this is not an easy industry to be in. Like, why do you have to make it harder for yourself? It's like Matchmaker sucks, but we got Podmatch. Alex, we love you, man. But point being said, though, it is a really good direction and a good idea to go towards. So something that you're doing can really not only benefit people tremendously, but like you mentioned, like with your own story, it really is able to inspire others, and it's able to grow a steady, what's the word? Grow steady, blah. Like a steady flow, because you're able to see what you want to work with, who you want to talk to, how you can help them, how you can better their podcast and better their businesses.
Yeah. There's It's really interesting too because I get people who come to me and they're like, "Look, I'm great at business, but I don't want to do a podcast. But my team is telling me I need to have a podcast. What do I need to do? How can I be good at this right away?" And I'm like, "Oh, no, you're not going to be good at this right away. That is just not how it works. You're going to go back and you're going to listen to those initial episodes. You're going to cringe. You're going to be like, oh, why did I say that like that? Why did I use those idioms? Why in the world did I keep saying and so?" That's my thing is I say and so much. But as you continue podcasting, as you continue to have those conversations, you get better, not just as a podcaster, but as a speaker, as a person, because you're able to expand your worldview. So yeah, I love podcasting and could literally talk about it all day.
Yee. It's actually funny because I sometimes will have conversations with people, and I love where I work in a brewery, so I had a few days ago, and I also like I manage the kitchen. And I had like I was talking with a customer, and he was just like, "Damn, you really good at conversations." And I looked at him and I was like, "I better be because I'm a podcaster." And he's like, "Okay, that explains it."
Yes.
But it's kind of strange though for me too, because I was like I told you, like I was raised in a Jewish cult in upstate New York. Now I wasn't raised in like the crazy part of the community, but one of the first things that I had to learn when I started assimilating and being a part of the actual real world, yay, you had to learn how to communicate, because in the Jewish community, it's like, I don't have any money. Oh, well, if you call up this person in the synagogue and you speak to that person, they'll give you money. And like, you just, you kind of like sit there like a little vegetable, like, all right, okay, I'm going to do what you're telling me. I'm not going to think for myself. Because and it was weird, being able to like think for yourself and make your own decisions and like have to talk to people and like being able to like come up with decisions and kind of figure out a compromise. And it was weird. It was weird for the first few years. I was like, what the hell is this?
Yeah. It was it has taken so much unlearning as an adult to figure out who the hell I am and figure out what do I
Because
actually believe.
they create your identity for you. That's the problem.
Yeah, it's it's rough. There's some people I remember they'd be like, "How are you so normal?" I'm like, "Oh, no, no.
No,
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 no. This has
no,
taken
no,
a
no.
lot of effort to be normal." Or quote unquote normal. Because
Quote unquote. Yeah, we're not as bad. We're not as bad as Seinfeld, but
right.
we're in that zone.
Yeah. I mean, if you'd asked me, like, okay, so prime example, in the cult that I was in, it was in New Jersey. Something about New England is just bad.
Oh wow, yeah. It was in New York. It was in Rockland County.
Okay.
Which
Yeah.
which one was yours? Oh boy, wow.
Mine
What were you, neighbor cults? Oh my god, you were neighbor cults. This is so exciting.
mine was more Warren County, New Jersey. So like
I know Warren County. Wait a minute. No, not Jehovah's Witness.
no.
Which one?
It was not a well-known one. Okay.
I know Warren County though.
It was a women's program for women with drug addiction and a place for them and their children to go to get clean. For the women to get clean. Obviously the children didn't need to get clean.
Obviously.
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 And it was an 18-month program that we were in for 10 years. So, how that happened, because, and it was evangelical Christian, was the very basis of it. The thing is that as people would leave, because within the realms of organized religion, they weren't giving these women the tools to actually make better decisions for themselves. They were simply removing them from the temptation. And so when the women went back out into the real world, temptation's right there and they don't know what the hell to do with that. And so they end up relapsing. And so I don't know why or how, but eventually it got to a point where the indoctrination to these women was, if you go out there, you are going to fall, which creates a lot of fear of, well, here I'm clean. Here I don't have to make decisions for myself. Here I'm taken care of. I don't have to have a job. I don't have to worry about where my food's coming from. I don't have to be pimped out. I don't have to do all these things. And sure, I have to go to a bunch of church services, but really, is that really that bad? And so you create almost this dependency on having everything provided for you and not having to make decisions, which then you have these kids raised in this environment. Hello, I'm a product of that environment. So, yeah, when I end up, so we were homeschooled through the program. And then when I finished high school, I was like, well, I want to go to a regular college. And like, I was looking at Bible colleges and like, I was looking at like secular ones. And they were like, oh, no, no, no. You have to go to this Bible college that's associated with us. Otherwise, you do not have a home to come to, like to come back to, which I have no practical job skills. I've never had a job. I don't know how to drive. I have no bank account. I have nothing to my name or anything. What in the world am I supposed to do other than just be like, okay, I guess that's where I'm going, because I don't know what else my options are, because it's never been presented to me in a way that is like, here are the things that you can do with your life. So, yeah.
I'm without words because it's a very very difficult situation to be in. I look, when you're raised in those type of and I even remember like having conversations with people about like the community I was raised in, and they're like, that really wasn't a cult community. I'm like, okay, I went to an all boys school. I went to doctors that were part of the community. I went to everything and anything, grocery stores, learning programs, restaurants, synagogue. Everything was in a facility, and like I remember the very first thing that my dad told me after I left the community, and I was living in LA, and I was on the phone with him, and he's like, "You see, this is what happens when you leave.
Yeah.
See what they do? When you
Mm-hmm.
try to leave and like shit's bad, they're like, oh no, shit's bad because you left. That's why it's bad."
Yeah. It's
That's so fucked up. It's so
it's
fucked up.
it really is. There's like when my sister and I were like reviewing all these cults and looking at all these cults, we actually very strongly believe that Christianity is a cult. And that like there's these anything that says that we are the only ones that know the truth, we are the only ones that have the secret to success and the secret.
All about the artist. That is the whole purpose of this podcast, period. And you have a really valuable tool. You can share this with artists, people that are creative, someone that can enjoy this podcast and really enjoy the experience of Lost in the Groove. So, with that, let's jump back to today's episode, shall we?
Key to
Sure.
living a great life, that's a cult. So if you're saying, oh, you have to go to this place because they're part of our in crowd, no. Whoa.
No. No. It's strange because I don't really have that many opportunities to talk to people that are raised in cults. It's not a very common occurrence. And one thing I have noticed, especially for people, we call us off the derech or OTD, the ones that leave the community.
Mm-hmm.
This is a strong number. I would say about like 95% to maybe like 98% of the people that leave, they're so fucked up. Like so badly fucked up. Like I've met some of these people and I'm like, oh my God, you're never gonna change. You're just gonna be this shitty piece of shit garbage, like fucked up in the head. And like I honestly feel that's all mentality and attitude. Like I know it sucks when you leave, but it can get better if you just give it a little, just a little bit of time.
Yeah,
A little bit. I
I
know it's
agree.
not easy to say to somebody, like, because it took me like 3.5 years. You know what I mean? And like 3 countries. So
Yes. Yeah. I mean, so I've been out for 12 years now. So anywhere from 10 to
okay.
12, I don't know. So I've been out for a while. I have my own family, I have my own kids, I have my own career, built my own business. And it's really interesting to talk to other kids who grew up there with me, like who spent 10 years there with us as well. Like talking to them now and seeing what their lives are now. And some of them have chosen to, all right, work on themselves, to lead the life that they want to lead for themselves. But for the most part, I would say a lot of the percentage, like you said, is a really big, almost victim mentality, I want to say,
Yeah.
of like, this is what
They use the
happened to
victim
me.
card. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, yes, and like, yes, shit was bad. And yes, that all those things happened to us. But like, why would you let that define the rest of your life? You're just going to keep giving those assholes power to like rule your life? No, like do something with it. So yeah, I definitely agree. And it's not easy at all. Granted, I also have selectively forgotten a lot of things that have happened there. I mean, I'm the oldest of 5. So my siblings will mention things and I'm like, nope, don't remember. Not even a little bit. And they're like, "Are you like really? You don't remember when this, and this happened?" Nope. I just
I had
choose
a
not to.
I had a conversation with a guest, and I remember we were talking, and he was telling me that because I told him that that person, it was like 2017, that person before has like passed away, and he was telling me that that idea doesn't necessarily exist because of the energy that Trent fixes, and it's infinite. However, like you were saying, I when somebody tells me like, "Oh my god, you remember when you were 5 years old?" and I'm like, "Yeah, okay." It's like I remember certain things as a kid, but it's interesting. A lot of what I remember as a kid is the things that I couldn't have. So like Cartoon Network, Disney Channel, like overalls or like a Tonka truck or like Hot Wheels or a Barbie. Yes, I was a kid into Barbie. Like those things. So it was like almost the things that I couldn't have, but I had for those brief moments. Oh, or VHS Blockbuster, iPods. Yeah, I
Yeah.
had some. I had some iPods. That's not allowed. Story for another time.
I know. We could swap so many stories of like
Do you
the band things that we
do you
like
remember
snuck.
though? Do you remember though? Like that's how we used to sneak in music. Like you used to have like a little tiny iPod, like put in the pocket, and like the wire used to go through your
Yep.
sweater, so
Yep.
nobody could see it.
Nope. Yes. Listening to music
Oh,
in
honey.
bed when you like everybody
Oh,
else is
honey.
asleep just to like or okay, so this is so bad. You're going to love this. We
Okay.
snuck High School Musical when it first came out and
Oh my
had the
god.
MP3 player to the TV so we could record the songs so we could listen to it later because we knew we'd never be able to watch this again.
Oh my god. Damn. That's hard. It's so hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy to think that as a as a person, one of the things that have always inspired me was just being able to be like creative and being inspired. Isn't that amazing? And how the one thing that cults take away from people is inspiration.
Yeah.
Why? Why is inspiration so dangerous to a cult? I'm
Because
asking you.
so it gives you a sense of individuality, which cults are definitely against, right? Of this, like, I'm good at this. No, we're all good at this. It's for the collective. I was actually just talking
It's
to
for
a friend
God.
of mine,
It's for Jesus.
yes, about this because she was
Mm-hmm.
like, how do you feel about compliments? And I was like, oh God, I have so many feelings about compliments because growing up, it was always, wow, you're so good at that. Praise be to God. It's never a you did an incredible thing. It's Jesus gave you so many great gifts, right? And then you get older and it's like, oh, wow, you're so good at that. Here, keep doing that as almost like a nobody else should learn to do this because Alicia's good at that. So let Alicia
I
keep
know.
doing it.
I
And it's
know.
like the compliments are always attached to a string of something. No, thank you
No, thank
because
you.
it's all for the collective. So when it comes to like inspiration and having unique stories and having unique voices and creating unique things, it all has to tie back to the group. I mean, I'm thinking about even I played the guitar for as long as I was in the cult. Since leaving, I actually stopped playing because it had so much tied to Christian music and the cult and always being on call to get up and lead worship whenever. And I was like, I'm good. I don't want to learn. I don't want to keep playing this instrument. But anytime that I would play, it was always well, how can the cult use this? Oh, you made a new song. Let's play it as a special during the service. Like it was always taking rather than amplifying. You know what I mean?
I wasn't allowed to play instruments.
I'm
My
sorry.
parents. No, it's cool. My father had. See, the thing is, my parents were interracial, and my mom is white, and my mom grew up in New York in a white family. And back in the '70s and back in those days, as a white person, you did not marry a black person. You didn't marry an Asian person. You didn't marry an Hispanic person. And my mom was like, I like this guy. He's Moroccan, he's African, and he's cute. And didn't really understand all the consequences.
Hmm.
And what basically happened is, I kind of grew up with this mentality where, like, my dad came from a completely different culture, was bastardized and manipulated and controlled by the Jewish community in New York when he came over in like 1970. He was like 13 or 14 years old. With my mom that came from a broken home that like had no backbone or any type of way of handling stress to any point. And they're both like creating their life in this cult because what other option do they have? Ask any one of my siblings, will all tell you the same thing. We're all fucked up, but we're all trying to get through this life one day at a time. Because that's how it is. Like, I can imagine, like, for your other four siblings, it's hell. Like,
Yeah.
besides like the music part or anything, like understanding that why did your parents put you in this situation? I know why my parents put me in this situation because they put themselves in that same situation, like fucking
Yeah.
48 years ago. And 40? Wow, yeah, 48 years ago. Damn, that was a long time ago.
I know. Yeah. Yeah. It's when we started our podcast about cults, it was like, why? That was our big question. Why in the world, mom, did you decide to do this? And like, my siblings and I have never really had any relationships with our dads. There are multiple. Like, so I have my own dad, and then there's the brother under me has his own dad, and then the bottom three have the same dad. And none of those relationships were great. I mean, my mom would tell stories about her childhood and being molested by her stepfather and like all different types of things that she had gone through that led her to drugs and alcohol and prostitution and sex work. And so by the time she had me when she was 16. And so then at that point, I mean, she's becoming a mom while not having any actual type of structure to her life or support other than do better, right? And so she finds religion as a way of like trying to do better for her kids, except it's hard, right? To like work on your mental, like, obviously there's mental health issues. She ended up later in life being diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And so, like, having really high highs and really low lows, that's a mental health issue. Obviously, you're going to try to figure out how to fix that yourself if religion does not say, go see a psychiatrist, go see a therapist, right? Like, they're like, nope, trust God, everything's fine. And so you just struggle internally. And so when you find a place like the cult that we grew up in, where you don't have to make those decisions. You don't have to worry about where our food is coming, where clothes are coming from. You don't have to even worry about where your kids are or what they're doing as they grow up and that they're turning into little yous who are running around like crazy. Like, you don't have to worry about any of that. Then it's so much, I want to say, shackled freedom.
It's euphoria
Yeah.
in its divinest form.
That's why people
I
join cults.
Wow, this is a great conversation for early morning. I'll tell you. I'll tell you this right now. But it's great. It's great though because it's honestly a really hard and difficult thing to discuss because you're right. A lot of the conversations that come up these days is very much from the victim's perspective. When I when I'm watching videos or clips or even like they make TV shows about the Jewish community and people that have left, most of it's trash. I'm going to be honest with you. Because they choose people that are victims. They never healed mentally or physically. And it's like, what are you doing? You're just promoting bad health and you're basically bad mouthing and dwindling a community where there could be decent people in there that are trying to, live and try to make a decent life for themselves. Like, keep in mind, like, the community is miles. It's fucking the whole Rockland County. Like, if you know Jersey, New York, like Rockland County, I think is like over. I don't even remember how many acres. It's a lot. It's a lot of acres. Okay, there's a lot of numbers in there. But yeah, I mean, like, how do you want to approach this? Is that your answer? You want to go over to the victims and have them badmouth and say, "Oh my God, it was horrible. It was like living in a fucking prison," or do you want to have a more realistic approach and actually like see what it was actually like from different people and see like what their experiences were coming out of there? That's my
Yeah.
only that's my only thing that I have a problem with the most. And one of the reasons I have a very hard time talking about it because like the second I hear like the victim speech, like, oh God, kill me.
Yes. Yeah. And like that is
It's
reality for some people, right? Like they do end up maybe doing well for a little bit afterwards, but because they spent so many years being catered to, then they end up falling back into whatever it was that
Yeah,
they
but
were
even
into
more so,
before.
why on earth would somebody interview somebody like that? Like I, right?
Yes.
Right?
You're trying to portray a certain idea, right? For sure, when you're interviewing only the people who, had terrible things happening to them or had those experiences where they never really moved forward with their lives. And I think having well, no, I'm not okay, but also I'm functioning and I'm moving forward with my life and I'm choosing every day to do things differently and to pause. This is something that helps a lot, right? So if you're listening and you were in a cult, this helps. Is if I have a thought, I will say, huh, is that my thought or is that somebody else's thought? Wait, pause. That's not right. Okay, why in the world am I thinking that? So for example, when I got out,
Had that.
I became a mom. A friend of mine was like, "Hey, I'm going to an introductory yoga class." And so my first thought was, "Oh, yoga's satanic." I was like, "Wait, what? Who whose thoughts are those?" Cuz I actually don't know. That is not something that I have studied. I only know the documentaries about yoga being satanic that I have watched in a cult. So, wait a minute. Let me pause, reframe this of like, okay, that first thought was interesting. What do I actually believe? I don't know what I believe. So let's give it a shot, right? Like you have to almost rewire your brain to have other original thoughts. It's not easy and it's very difficult, but it is possible. You just have to make an effort sometimes.
Yeah, you do. I remember, like touching on like when I was figuring out like my sexuality. I remember, I was kind of in that period where I was like bi-ish esque, and I had that very similar thought in my head. I'm like, why am I thinking this way? I'm like, you know what? Fuck this. I had a friend of mine. We went out to a party, and there was just a ton of girls. And not to be explicit, I just like looked down, and I was like, okay, I'm definitely gay. That's cleared.
Yeah.
It was just like getting that bit of like clarity in my head. I'm like, why am I thinking this way? Is it
Mm.
because maybe I was raised that you're not supposed to be like this, or that it's something that you're I hate even saying it. It's like something that you I remember I remember that one of the things that they used to teach us was that homosexuality was caused by bad parenting. So that if a father wasn't too loving or didn't, care for the child enough, it could cause, homosexuality. So I remember me and my brother, my brother, he's also one that left to the community. He lives in California. We were talking about it and we just like broke out in laughter. And I remember he was like on the phone. He's like, dude, why in the hell would anybody choose that? Like just wake up one day, it's like, I want to be. Come on. It's like every single person is unique in their own way, and to like have that attitude and mentality. Well, God doesn't like this. So because God doesn't like this, therefore you can't do it. How can you be the person to interpret God? And on top of that, interpret a book that's 6,000 years old. Okay. I don't speak Sumerian. I don't read hieroglyphics. I don't understand 6,000-year-old culture. It's like broken telephone in a way, and it's like, what are we doing here? I can't get tattoos. I can't fuck a man. Oh my God, that's so hot. Oh, girl.
Like,
Hell no.
okay, there I have so many issues with the Bible. Having grown up in the Christian side, like there like you said, it is a bad game of telephone. You've got the reiterations and the new translations that were done by kings and by their little cohorts. And because the common person couldn't read the language, and I actually was talking to my kids about this because we talk about religion very broadly, right? And they understand There are going to be different religions. When you're older, if you decide that you want to be part of a religion, that's up to you. We talk about Greek mythology gods as gods, right? Like the stories, that everything is a story.
Do you want to hear
And
something funny? Do you want
yes.
to hear something funny? I always tell people that I don't believe in God, I believe in Jesus. And the reason why I believe in Jesus is because he's a Jew and he's my bro.
There you go. And like,
There
yeah,
you
I'll tell
go.
my kids, like, yeah, Jesus was a person. There's historical things showing that there was a Jesus.
Yeah.
Yes. Moving on.
We By the way, we've talked. I remember we had a rabbi that did a whole lecture on this. Where we, even as Jews, like have used like philosophers and scholars such as Josephus Flavius to figure out like different stories within our history. And it's interesting because when and I had this conversation with somebody before, and I can't remember if we're talking about Jesus, but Jesus was he was the first person that we know of in Jewish history that started a form of modern orthodoxy. His philosophy and belief was not necessarily assimilation, but it was accepting and loving of other cultures. And you can see this type of effect on the Jewish culture because there was a point where all faiths were allowed to come to the holy city and all faiths were allowed to celebrate when the second temple was around. But it's interesting in how like Christianity has taken such a turn because I have a friend of mine, one of my best friends, she does the podcast with me. She follows old Christianity, like the 102 years after Jesus Christ's death,
Mhm.
and it is night and day from any type of Christianity I've ever heard. I was like, what? Like, I don't follow, but I was like, I never heard what? You do? No, Christians don't do that. And she's like, yes, they do. And I was like, have we just literally just manipulating a book over thousands of years to our own liking? Is that literally what it is?
It's politics. Like, you've got like my husband, so this is great because my husband also grew up Catholic. And so it's really interesting to
Oh.
hear his stories of like growing up, going to Catholic church, going to Catholic school. Of course, he's like, I don't remember none of it. But like hearing some of the things that he'll say and like the stories of his version of Catholicism and Christianity and what that is versus evangelical Christianity, which is how I grew up, and like seeing all the differences and the nuances, it's like, it's all political and money. Like that's literally what it all is. And no, I'm anything that's an organized religion, you're gonna get politics involved, especially when you go back into history of like the common person not knowing how to read or write and everything having to be translated by the person in power, the Pope, the leadership, that kind of thing.
Sorry.
You're
Good
good.
weed. When you're when we were talking about, like, for example, with the Bible, for example, I have tattoos. And I remember, if you look at that phrase, it says, you cannot get tattoos. And if the funny thing, actually, as Jews, we have different scholars that have written on this text. One of them depicts that what the Bible or the Old Testament or the Torah was mentioning is in those days, people used to purposely let themselves bleed. Okay, so they were just tattoos, these markers, and it was a form of idol worship. The year's 2024. Tattoo artists have to go through rigorous training and safety precautions as well as hazardous materials. They really have to know how to use their equipment properly to stay hygienic. And number two, I think most people, except you go to a Thailand, monk for a tattoo, don't get tattoos for idol worship. I don't think that boo or fucking pineapple on your ass is idol worship.
I agree. I also have several tattoos, and I remember when I got my first one, it's a rose, not a tramp stamp, but it's on my back on the side. And like, I remember being scared to tell my mom I was 18. God. 18 years old, about to be 19, and scared to be like, Mom, I got a tattoo because it was like bad. It was this bad, terrible thing that you're not supposed to mark your body. And it's like, okay, well, in that same book, they also talk about not mixing clothing together and like don't mix your cotton on your and your polyester. Don't touch dead pigs. Like, okay, football
Do you
players
know?
running around with pig
Okay,
skins.
do you know? By the way, the whole thing with the pigs is because back then they didn't know how to properly cook pork, and a lot of people used to get worms and infections and die. That's one. Another thing, the reason why wool and cotton, they said you can't mix them. It's very obvious. Wool comes from a sheep, and if we're talking about thousands of years ago, they probably couldn't like take care of them like with fleas or bugs or insects. And because wool can be coarser and thicker than cotton, it's easier to just separate them so you don't have bugs or insects in your fabrics.
Yeah.
A lot of the things that seem complex and complicated today's days, we have very simple explanation as to why they possibly thought that way. You know, it's the
Mhm.
sorry if I'm jumping back and forth, but like even think
I
at the
love
like
it.
the Genesis, the very beginning, okay, there was light, and it's like I remember having this fight with my father. He's like, the world was created in 7 days. I'm like, who are we to say that 7 days literally means 24 hours? Maybe 7 days means 14 billion years.
Yep.
Do you know that there is a scholar, I believe it was Taisvis or Rashi, that mentions about the calculation based on the celestial, like the stars, moving from one place to another. So they were arguing about what exactly classifies as a day. So why are
Mhm.
you telling me that like, oh, the world is only 6,000 years old? If you have scholars that are having conversations figuring out what exactly a day means,
Yep. No,
it
I
doesn't
agree.
it doesn't make sense.
100%. Yes. Yeah, that was also something that when I went to Bible college, I was there for 2 years, and I had like a Bible that would go back to like the original Hebrew text and the original Greek text and like all of this stuff. And
Wait a
so I
minute, you
would
can read Hebrew letters?
know. So what I would
Oh,
do is I would see that word and I would find it in like a this is what it meant. And it would give like 15 different English versions of what it could possibly mean within the text. And so you're looking at, okay, in 7 days, a day could be a revolution of the world. It could be 15 different things. And so what we determine as this is what the scripture says could have 25 different meanings, but because whoever decided to translate it into English decided that this translation was the translation that they were going to use, that they believed. It's like going into poetry and saying, well, this is what that poet meant. When you wasn't there like a college student who went and
hey, it's Dave, and I quickly just wanted to jump in and say if you've been enjoying the podcast and enjoying this episode, if you can leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, that'll be so greatly appreciated. Because here's the thing, someone might read that review and make the choice if they want to listen to the podcast. You get to help grow this podcast with us. How fucking cool is that? Let's jump back to today's episode.
like sent a bunch of emails to authors and was like, "Did you mean this, and this in your book?" And they were like, "No, I meant it literally." And so they brought it to their professor and was like, "These authors are saying that they literally mean what they're saying." So all of this idea of, "Oh, well, they might have meant this and it could have meant this and let's interpret it in our own like this is what we mean today." no, it's not valid at all. They literally meant what they meant, which when we go to translate that into a new language, in a different language, it's going to be completely different in meaning.
Yeah, it is. And the crazy thing is, like, to the point where I remember being told that we are not supposed to understand, that it's the holy word. So here's the other thing too, is like, to question the holy word, you can't question. You can ponder, and you can elaborate, but you cannot question. And it's funny because, like, as Jews, the one thing that they always say is like, "Oh, you can ask questions," but the second you start asking questions, like, "Don't you believe in God? Don't you
Yeah.
have faith in Hashem that He'll come and protect you?" And, like, again, I'm not sure, like, badmouth or anything. It's again where, if you want to live in a world where everybody, not equality, where everybody can sit down rationally, all open minded, and being able to look at each other, whether non religious, religious, something, who knows, and just be able to see each other for who they are, it would never happen. It's never going to happen. Why? Because we as human beings are flawed. And we don't work that way. We never
Hmm.
have.
Yeah. It's so frustrating too, right? Because especially like raising kids in this world is so hard, especially with like history like ours, where you try to do better and you try to teach them to have thoughts and to question. And like that's something my husband and I are very like ask questions, question other people. Don't just take what people say as truth. And it's so funny that my oldest, he's going to be 10 this year, which is wild to me. He's going to be
Hold
10.
on. Wait. Hold on. Stonebright. You you have a 10-year-old?
I know.
You do not look old enough to have a 10-year-old.
I am 32 years old, I think. Yeah, 32 or 33, maybe. I don't know.
Damn. So you had this
Whatever.
little guy. You had this little guy
Yeah.
young.
Well, you know what's good about this is that so I have a 10-year-old and I'll have a 7-year-old this year. And I'm going to
Aww.
be 45 with an empty house, which is I'll have more money by then. My kids will be grown. I'll be able to travel and enjoy my late 40s and my 50s.
You could
Where
be a
like
cougar.
no,
Ooh.
I'm good.
Oh, okay.
I don't know, maybe, and we'll see.
Maybe.
But
Just
yeah, like I mean, so like I see people do this both ways, right? Like where they don't want to have kids in their 20s because they want to go explore the world and do all these. You're fucking broke in your 20s. I am not interested in doing that and like having traveled. And so we did have kids relatively young. And like, I'm excited to be 45 and go to Italy and like enjoy it with some money. You know what I'm
actually actually
saying?
it's kind of crazy because when you go to Italy, because I went to Rome, it's like one of those experiences, like, nah, it's expensive. It's
Yes.
real expensive. But it's so fun, and, like, all the men are just, oh my god. I'm sorry, I'm just having
Gorgeous.
vivid, oh my god. I was with my mom, and I was like, "Ma, can I have, like, maybe a night? Maybe just, like, maybe 2 nights? Like, you go back to the hotel, and I'll figure out my living situation. I'm gonna go men shopping in Italy."
I love it.
But, like,
Yes.
honestly, like, I'm telling you, it's just, in a way, I'm kind of thankful that my life kind of turned in this direction. Like, I'm 25, and one thing I'm able to say is, like, as a 25-year-old, I've been constantly trying to build myself a life that's
Mm,
sustainable. Do you know how many people my age right now are fucking hungover this morning, bro?
yeah.
And, like, they got a shit job in fucking Subway, doing nothing with their lives, going nowhere. And, like, I sometimes feel like, holy shit, like, I'm working crazy, like, I haven't, like, really dated, I haven't really, like, focused on things, but I think to myself, like you were saying, like, having those kids younger, it's like we got out of a really bad situation, and we kinda figured out, "Look, we got out, and we fucking survived. Yeah. So
Yes.
we wanna do something about it. Like I wanna be able to, I don't know, fucking podcast or be back in the kitchen and sweating my ass off. Or, you dealing with businesses and they're sorry pains in the asses. I'm sorry, we love you people. But they can't be pains in the
They
asses.
can be, yes, like
Yes.
anybody, right?
For sure.
Yeah, I think what I love I mean, this is silly, but what I love about having grown up that way, which, like, obviously there's not a lot to love, but what I love about it is that it made me so fucking resilient and, like, don't take no for an answer because people have been telling me no my entire life. I'm gonna do different. I'm going to fuck you. Like, I'm doing this thing. Oh, you're saying I
Oh yeah.
can't do it? I'm doing it. And I think that it
Mhm.
just created such a resilience to make my life what I want it to be. And I love what I do. Like, yeah, business owners, they can be jerks sometimes. But I have I've created a business where literally on sales calls, I tell them, look, I'm a type A person. I will take your podcast and I will run with it. If you're not okay with that and you want to have your hands in it, we're not a good fit. That is okay. Like, I've been able to say that because I know this is my personality. These are the types of people I want to attract, people who are happy to just hand it over and let me have fun. And those are the types of clients that I have now. Whereas, like, when I first started, it was like, oh man, okay, that was bad. You made my team cry. I'm going to fight you. Like, we need to figure out how never to have those types of clients again. And so, like, being able to create the life that I want has been able to happen because of growing up and being like, you know what? Actually, I'm going to take your no and raise you one, and we're going to make this life my bitch. So take that.
Agreed. No, and it's true. Like I can relate from the standpoint of like I'm I work I work and manage as a chef in a brewery in the kitchen. And I left the food industry in 2019 because of really bad experiences with, chefs and jealousy. I'm going to be very honest with people as a person that's worked in the food industry for 6.5 years. Whatever Food Network and all the television shows have told you, they're lying to you. When you work in the food industry, it's like working for cats, like big
Ugh.
cats, like lions, panthers, and cougars and tigers. Everyone is after you. No one is there to save you. Everyone is there to and I'm not trying to like make it sound horrible. It's just that's the industry. It's like
Mhm.
either you're good or you're fucking amazing. If you're good, get over there and fucking wash the dishes. If you're fucking amazing, like make the food and go out there and be just fantastic. So there's a mindset for me, like especially
Mhm.
managing this kitchen, where I have to be like on top of this. Like this is the menu
Yeah.
I'm working with. Like, and my boss is the same way. Like the way we make our pizzas, and it's not like this insane mentality, but like you're saying, like when I was raised younger, this attitude of being able to be resilient and strong and understand, like, this is your task, this is what you have to do. You got to finish it. You got to finish it. You got to get through
Mhm.
this.
Yeah. I think thankfully I had a really good working experience after I left. So, like, my first okay, well, not my first job. My first job was pumping gas at a Wawa. Hello, New Jersey.
Wow.
And I was like, "You know what? I
Oh
need
my
to
God,
make
did they
some
give you the
more."
red sweater? No, did they give you the red sweater with the red cap?
No, those were people inside. So I had to wear, like,
Oh.
jeans and a sweatshirt because I was outside. Rain or shine, didn't matter, with, like, a high vis t-shirt or a high vis, like, vest on. But so I started networking and I ended up getting into manufacturing, which is a very male dominated industry. And I was one of 5 women in a facility with 150 dudes and the only Black woman. Like, or mixed woman for
Hello.
a very long time. And
I
like
don't know. This sounds
having
like a Donna Summer song right
right
now.
having to stand toe to toe with a bunch of white dudes was like I had to be like, yeah, I had a weird childhood, but that doesn't matter here. I have to say what I mean and say it with my quote unquote balls because like no one's going to take me serious if I just fluff my way through this. And so I had to own, all right, I know what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing. And thankfully, I had really good bosses who were very encouraging and like, hey, we're taking a chance on you. We don't really have a lot of women, especially in like the handling a lot of material side. But let's see how this works. And ended up being to the point where I ended up going up and up and up into the corporation. The guy that I networked with while I was pumping gas at the Wawa was the head of all of the US facilities. And so I put his name on there, like, okay, maybe this will help. I don't know. I don't know this dude. Ended up being able to, they relocated my family from New Jersey to North Carolina, paid for everything, and then built up working at the new facility and like almost to the point of I'm in the plant manager's office telling him what he needs to do, what's happening behind the scenes. I'm running shit. Like you have to be able to be like, look, this is what I'm doing. It doesn't matter. Whatever happened before, no, we're moving forward. Let's go.
Exactly. Exactly. No, and that honestly, honestly, having a positive attitude and outlook really benefits you in the long run. Because when you're able to create those healthy relationships, even if the environment is not suitable, I
Mhm.
mean, 5 women, 115 men.
50.
Okay, 150. Yeah, if that was, a dance club, we would have a problem. It would be a very big problem. But the point is like being able to build yourself from there, even with that difficulty, even with those obstacles. And I feel like somebody like yourself, it's not easy to do the things that you do. Like people are like, "Oh, I can do that."
Have fun.
Good luck.
Yes. Yeah. I'm- I think everything has kind of led me to this point, right? All those choices, all of those decisions have led me to the point where like I am creating something that I am passionate about, that I love doing, being able like one of our taglines is messages that make a difference. Right. And so, yes, we work with business owners, but these are business owners who care about their people. They care about what it is that they're putting out into the world. And the messages that they're creating with their shows are making a positive impact. And so it's like, I'm able to do that now because of everything that I went through up to this point. Right. And it sucked. And like you said, positivity, yes, is so important and also understanding the duality of life, right? That there is good and there is bad. And you can't really let either of those kind of define you. You have to make the choice of what it is that you're going to do with your life.
It is. And I definitely feel when I ever have that pondering thought of, for example, is there a higher power, or there's something out there? I like to always go back to the idea that we are made out of the universe and the universe is us. And in a way that we're connected in some strange way. And whatever happens to you in the world, like I will bump into people or have experiences and I'm like, there you go. The universe answered. You know,
Yes.
I'm like the type of person. I'm not a positive person. I'm like a pessimist. I'm like, who fucking drank half of this glass? I want to beat the shit out of you.
I
But
love it.
let me ask you something though. Have you had any businesses that you want to like you can highlight or something that you felt connected to, like the stuff that they were selling or the products that they were making?
Like one of our clients or just in general?
I mean, be clients or just a business that yeah, like me. I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah. So
know.
this is silly. But
Ooh, I love
I've
silly.
yes, I figured as much.
Yay!
I so I use Quip. This is not a client. I use Quip, the toothbrush subscription service, and I am not an affiliate. I do not
Is
get
it
money from
toothpaste?
them. They do toothbrushes and toothpaste. So they're electrical toothbrushes, and then they send you a new toothbrush head every 3 months. So that way you don't have to worry about like, oh, I need a new toothbrush. It's been 3 months. And so they automatically send it. And then they also have toothpaste. They have floss. They've got all of mouthwash, all of these things. But they started off with toothbrushes. And the reason that I love them and I will stay with them is we're seeing this shift in, and my degree is in marketing and business management. So I look at people's marketing a lot and it helps with my business, but also like, what are other people doing?
Right.
We're seeing this shift in more of a trauma informed marketing that I really, really love. And like around Mother's Day and Father's Day, they actually sent an email this last year where they said, we're going to be starting to promote our Mother's Day and our Father's Day promotions. If this is something that is triggering for you, please select here to opt out of these. And I was like, having lost my mother in 2019, and then my dad passed away in 2023, so just last year.
2020.
Like, yes. So like it can be really frustrating seeing all of the hoopla, right? And like it's been a bit now, so I certain things I can handle, but it's still something like it's just kind of like an in your face reminder around those times of year. And to have that type of trauma informed marketing where they say, we care about you as humans who have been through shit. If you want to opt out of this marketing that we're about to blast everybody with, then select here. And I just love that. Like, I love that certain companies are starting to make that realization that we're humans with human experiences and not all of them are great. And we can do better by making those choices in our marketing. So I just love it. So yeah, Quip,
No,
I
that
like them. They're good.
I love that, and I think that's a really sorry, I had a frog in my throat. It's a great thing that is happening with companies, and it just goes to show you that instead of forcing an agenda on people, such as Bud Light, when you have a company like this where you're not like forcing, you understand that some people are not comfortable. Especially when it comes around Father's Day, I'm that kind of person like, cool. Like, it's just gonna be 24 hours and remind me of my dead dad,
Yeah.
you know? So it's
Yeah.
like, I don't really want to do that. Like, usually I'll try to like hang out with my mom, you know?
Mhm.
Sometimes people don't have that option, you know, sometimes you
Yeah.
spend time with your family. But even more than that is businesses that have an understanding of people's choices pertaining specifically to people like ourselves, people that were raised in religious cults, people that were raised in very difficult homes and situations. The thing about like mental health, specifically around like anxiety, depression, and what we're dealing with is don't shove a pill in a person's face. Don't shove a bandage in the person like, I got a life coach and I'm going to hear. Don't do that. You know, like there are
Yeah.
definitely therapies and businesses that have been working on, like, for example, even psychedelics are one of those to figure out different ways of how to be able to cope with these things because our brains have neurons. And if they can't attach or connect or send out proper blood flow, or certain things won't work correctly, or certain parts of your brain won't work correctly.
Yeah.
So, do we want to promote mental health and continue that problem? Or do we want to promote an infrastructure that's more focused on we have an issue? Let's look at a healthier resolution and a better approach to this.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes me think of like when right before my mom passed, she was dealing with a lot of depression, and she also was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, which is like the unknown disease, right? You have extreme pain in your body and there's no reason, literally no reason that your joints can't work. I mean, she was at the point where she would tell me she could not connect the button on her pants because her fingers and her wrists hurt so bad, and there was no reason. They couldn't give her any like this broke or this is the problem. It was just pain. And so, of course, in extreme depression and extreme pain, she turns to, what did she have?
Opiates?
Yes, she was taking the one that they give you at the hospital, morphine, which was laced with a toxic amount of fentanyl. And so that's what happened. And it's like, there are just certain things that aren't going to help with the mental health. And like, you can't just force someone to say, like, and this was something that I would have discussions with my mom about a lot. She would say, I didn't just wake up and say, I'm going to do drugs today. And I would tell her, Mom, it's a choice. And I wish I had not said that. like like knowing what I know now about mental health, knowing what I know now about the nuances behind, like, yes, I can make a choice, but I'm also not struggling with debilitating depression or debilitating pain in my body. And it's like, there has to be, and I don't know what the answer is, but there has to be a balance between getting people the help they need and also understanding that sometimes there's nothing that can help.
Yeah. I can say my mom unfortunately fell under the opiate dependency. She went to a doctor, which I think he was unboarded. Like his
Oh, jeez.
they just took away his life. He was terrible. He botched my mom's knee surgery the first time, and then he started prescribing her painkillers.
Yeah.
And I remember it was just bottles and bottles and bottles and bottles and bottle. Like it was. I remember there was like one point, like me and my dad, we were just like we grabbed and just like in the toilet. It was just
Yeah.
so many bottles. And my mom started weaning off, but the I got to a point recently with her where I said to her, I said, "Listen, you can make a choice. You can continue taking your 12 medications a day plus these painkillers, or I can give you a different solution."
Mhm.
And I introduced my mom to cannabis. And, it's like one of those things are like, what are we? My mom loved it. Like the first time I got my mom high, she's like, I'm not high. Where are the brownies? Or we have cookies? Where are the cupcakes? And she keeps on reminding me of how, like, she's able to sleep better and how she's able to feel better.
Mhm.
I do know that she still takes, I mean, obviously, but you know in a way I feel a little bit less guilty because I am myself, I'm like, look, this is something I've been doing for 4 years to function and survive. You can
Mhm.
try this and see if it works for you. But you're right, it doesn't always work in every single situation, but when it does, take that opportunity. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, my mom wouldn't have been able to experience and be able to learn about it without me. I mean, if I wasn't the one, or because who else would she ask?
Yeah.
My mom doesn't really trust doctors anymore. She keeps on telling, because they fucking killed my dad.
Yeah.
Like my dad died of COVID, you know, during the first wave. Nobody remembers that, by the way, in New
Yeah.
York. It was like the goddamn zombie apocalypse. Nobody knew what was going on. Like, nobody, like, he had like he had medical conditions and problems on top of it. It was just like,
Hmm.
so I like to look at solutions, and I don't like forced agendas or opinions, where, like, yeah, like, don't take opioids, but there's another way. Yeah, it's cannabis, or it could be psychoactive therapy, or it could be, believe it or not, actually, somebody told me this. It's actually Tai Chi.
Oh.
So somebody told me that one of the things that they started doing is you can do yoga and like Tai Chi, and that
Mhm.
does help people, especially with opiate dependency. So they're able to get out the dopamine,
Yeah.
serotonins, and stuff like that.
It makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I'm all for that. I don't personally partake because of my mom's history and knowing that like I have very addictive personality and also I have asthma. So if I smoke anything,
I
I'm
know.
my
My
body's
mom
like
doesn't my mom doesn't like smoking. She does like the edibles. She
yes.
has little
So
gummies.
yeah, I wouldn't yeah. I've tried. The I tend to have not so great reactions, so I've just stayed away personally.
Okay.
But I'm good. My husband, on the other hand, he loves smoking weed, especially before we had kids. And since we've had kids, we tend to veer more towards like the gummies, which they sell right at the. We live in North Carolina. They sell right at the little smoke shop where you can go and get THC gummies or
Is it
Delta 8 gummies or whatever.
is it recreationally legal in North Carolina?
Not, I believe CBD is, but not weed yet at this point. And
I
so
see.
they've got the THC gummies, which are like those will mess you up pretty good. But like my husband had a really bad ear infection to the point where he was in so much pain. Of course, they gave him some opioids, and he was like, "I'm good. I'd rather just have some weed gummies and be like some THC gummies and be good." And that's what we did. So that he was able to be like, "All right, now that I don't have an ear infection and I'm not, my head doesn't feel like it's about to explode. I'll have them whenever I'm good." Like. But yeah, I think that there are definitely options, and like religion, that side goes back to money. The opioid industry is so in like just steeped in who's making money from it. It is so bad. So yeah, I think doing your research and knowing all of that
See the
stuff helps you make better decisions.
See, the thing also is like you've had experience working with all types of businesses across the charts, specifically ones that, you've managed and be able to help them build their platforms and their podcast. But we unfortunately have started to see the unfolding of the curtains to the point that a lot of businesses have been deceived in many ways because they've been
Yeah.
promised a lot of things by these larger corporations. Like, you ever heard of buyouts? You ever heard of buyouts?
Hmm.
Which is one of them, partnerships, corporations, working with other conglomerates. And it just gets so sketchy and weird. And who are you supposed to believe? Like, who are you supposed to trust? Like, how do you know that the supposedly like eco company isn't just some like bullshit knockoff Nestle company, and they're just like having like this cool logo or whatever? You don't
Yeah.
know. You really don't know.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I feel like everyone is greenwashing, pinkwashing. They're just making everything as consumer friendly as possible to make themselves look better. And it is hard to know which ones are ethical and which ones are not. But thankfully, the ones that we tend to work with are referrals from other people of like, hey, we know this person, we trust this person. You should go. Alicia, you should work with them. Person, you should go work with Alicia. And I think that that really helps. And it'll be interesting to see as we kind of move into working with more people, like the everyday person. And that's where I think, like we were talking before, being an introvert, but being forward facing is going to help them say, like, oh, okay, she's a real person. She's not just like this crazy person. Like, no, I will talk about how I read 250 romance books a year. I will talk about how I grew up in a cult. I will talk about all of these things because that's what makes me a human, right? And connects me with other people.
Right.
I think looking for those types of connections is a good starting point. It's not easy to find people, like decent people, but I think it's worth it in the end once you find the right people.
You're able to create a platform for yourself that allows you to distinguish businesses that you connect with.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is that it's not about, trusting the experts or finding the research. It's understanding that we as people can work together to find solutions to problems, such as like reviews that can help to be able to understand products. You can have, for example, like a podcast. I always thought this is funny. Like, if you had a thrift store, especially ones that have like vintage clothes, why in the hell don't they do podcast? Like, imagine them like do a podcast. They can do like a video on YouTube, and they'll be like,
Mhm.
"We got this like funky piece, it's like 1988," and then like talk about it or whatever. And
Yeah.
you've got so much great material right there that you can, because it's like a, like a business that's so like specific and can sometimes be hard to bring in traffic.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, like I'm like trying to do what you do, but I don't do what you do.
So for a business like that, right? I would say, and this is so, I hate saying this, but I stand on my soapbox for this. Not everyone should have a podcast, and I don't think that people realize that, because there is 90% of podcasts who start do not continue, which is really sad, right? It makes my heart sad. So do something else before you start a podcast, if possible, and see if you like it, or be a
Yay.
guest on other podcasts to see if you like it.
Yeah, like
And so for
Lost in the
something
Groove.
like, exactly.
And you can shit and like be nervous and like pee your pants and you're okay. We'll
It's
edit it
okay.
out for you.
Or not.
Or not.
But like, so for a thrift shop, right? I would actually say TikTok, as much as I hate it, as being an older millennial, or I can't stand.
Listen, honey, I'm like early Gen Z, like late millennial, and I don't understand the TikTok. I
So
call it the TikTok, like literally the TikTok.
I am undiagnosed, but I'm pretty sure I have ADHD. And so
Same.
the idea is like dopamine hits, right? I don't really need TikTok for dopamine hits. I can go elsewhere for
I
mine.
don't like it. I
It's
really
just
don't like
it's
it.
too much, and
Way too much.
it's a lot, and it's weird, and I don't. It's also weird to see like children on there, which is just like, why? Who gave you a phone? It's like my whole other thing. It's like having grown up in a cult and didn't have my first cell phone until I was 18. Like, who gave you a phone? But like, so for a thrift shop, I think that TikTok or some type of reels or YouTube shorts, something like that would probably be the best bet, where you can show the piece, right? Or you can model the piece. Whereas when it comes to businesses where, like the ones we work with, so one of our clients, she does boundaries coaching, and like through the lens of 12 steps, which that's her thing. I personally don't care for them very much, but whatever. That's what she does. And so she uses the lens of 12 steps as like creating boundaries in your life, especially as people pleasers, as addicts, as children of addicts, as all of this stuff. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I can understand where you're going with this. And so like she has talks through examples of things that she's able to do, talks through, okay, the holidays are coming around. Here's something that you can do if maybe you have a relative that brings up a certain thing that you know is triggering for you, and how to steer the conversation. So those are the types of businesses that I think podcasting works really well for. If the thrift shop was like, hey, we really want to do a podcast, then I would say it would be really cool to either connect with local businesses and have them on your podcast, is like highlighting local businesses. So it's not so much about the thrift shop, but more about our community, or find a way that you can interview like OG clothing stylists, or OG, like people who are like, have been creating clothing, and I'm not a fashionista whatsoever, clearly, but
You can pretend to be, honey, for this podcast, and I will allow you to.
Good luck. I'm
Okay.
like literally in my Amazon. Well, this was my friend got it for me. It's a tarot card on a t-shirt that says The Reader. And then I'm wearing my husband's Cartoon Network pajama pants. So like, I couldn't even
love
pretend.
that for you. I love that.
But you could interview those types of people. So like, there are different ways that you can do it, that it's not just like, okay, I have to podcast this one way, or I have to showcase my business in this one way. Podcasting is so much more about like creating connections with the people that you want to create connections with, or getting in front of the people that you want to get in front of, whether that's your listeners or your guests, or even it just therapeutically working through shit like I did with my podcast with my sister. Like there's just so many options for what you can do with a podcast, that it's And it's a fun medium. You can do it in your husband's pajama pants if you want
Oh,
to.
yeah. Especially Cartoon Network theme, baby. Hey! Oh, my God. Well, I have to say, it's a rare occasion when you're able to meet people that you connect with. And again, it's even rarer when you're able to meet people from different types of cults. So I will say this was a heavy episode, but lots of
it was
fun.
fun. It was so
Yeah,
much fun. I
was.
love being able to connect with other people, especially when it's like, oh yeah, me too. Oh,
Damn, you go through that shit too, bro. Oh man.
exactly.
We got through it though, I think I mean you're gonna be, on a one of those, what do you call it, Virgin Cruise, adult only, when you're 45, with your husband, like unts, no kids, unts, no kids, unts.
I know. Yes. It's gonna be great. I mean, yeah.
There you go. Memories to look forward to.
Yes. It's gonna be awesome. I'm excited.
Alicia, question for you.
Yeah.
Where can these wonderful people that have managed to get to this point find your work? For example, like information about like your socials.
Yeah.
That was a long sentence.
If you're listening to this podcast, you can listen to my podcast, which is called Successful Podcasting Unlocked. It's 10 minutes or less, digestible podcasting tips if you're like, I think I want to launch a podcast. If you want to say hey and just like shoot the shit, send me a DM on Instagram, not TikTok, please. Send me an Instagram DM, Alesia.Galati, and you can find me over there as well.
Fun. So you can find everything in one place, which is always amazing. I sometimes question, it's like, okay, so my Facebook is this one, and then my TikTok is that one, and then I'm like, give me a second, I need a pen and a paper.
It's too many places.
Simple
direction.
Simple direction. There you go. Well,
Yeah.
Listen, Alicia, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on. And for all these wonderful people, if you want to find the podcast, find us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Lost the Groove Pod. So with that, catch you on the next one. All right.
Thank you.